Good evening. We are here at the Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 26th. We'll take a quick round of attendance here. Go ahead, Jean.
I'm Jean Walker.
Susan Tucker.
David Neiman.
Kimberly Peace.
Kim Ricard.
Nick Campusano.
Collis Adams.
Patty Gale, staff.
All right, great. We're going to try to abbreviate this as much as we can because of the snow tonight, so let's just kind of fly through it as we go. So how about the budget? Let's go first. Madam Chairman,
The current balance of the Conservation Commission current fund, use fund is $281,885.25. That is only a change from the previous balance from interest, which was $21.54. Our 2010 ending conservation budget balance is $2,043.06
All right,
in the year 2010.
thank you. Anybody have any, do we have any budget issues we need to discuss?
I have one question. If that was our ending balance and we start as of January 1st, correct, with the new budget year?
Well, yeah, but the budget still needs to be voted on.
What happens to, if that's where we ended off, that was our balance, what was left, correct, from last year?
Yep.
So what happens to that money?
Goes back in the general fund.
Good job, Conservation Commission.
Watch for the reduction on your next tax.
Well, that's after we've
Everyone will
already
lose
made a
the
commitment
pennies.
of the 10% too.
That's right. So
So-
we're a very efficient committee. So,
Okay?
great.
That was all I had to say.
Thank you. David, we'll skip the minutes. Patty and I made some revisions, or I made revisions and Patty revised the minutes last time. Does anybody else have any other minute revisions from December 15th? Were they read? Did we review them? Okay, somebody make a motion to approve the minutes?
I cannot, I was not here.
Oh, you weren't there. Okay, Jean makes a motion to approve the minutes.
I
Anyone second?
believe I'm an alternate voting member since we need 7, so I'll second the motion.
Okay, Kyle seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Abstains? Kim, step back? Okay. All right, now, let's go back to Open Space Committee update. David, you want to lead that, please?
Well, I think you have it right in the agenda is colon, and then there's nothing, because I really have nothing to report.
Okay, good. All right.
We will beat the snow tonight, won't we?
Okay, we're gonna rock on through this. Are we, do we vote on the non-public minutes?
Yes, you do, and if you want to wait and do it the next meeting, that's fine. I just distribute them tonight to everyone if you want to look at them.
Oh, because
For
these are the
sure.
ones you and I have, we haven't seen?
Yes.
Okay, we haven't seen.
I was
Yeah.
told to hand them out versus mailing them.
Okay. How about we review them and look over them for the next meeting? Okay. Don't anybody let any unofficial hands touch these. Okay, let's go ahead through correspondence. We have a notice of acceptance of shoreland permit for the Waltons, East Dunbarton Road. Item carried over from with attachments explaining history and the permit needed to change single-family home to two-family. All right, good. We got that clarified. Copy of the dredge and fill for Tibbetts Hill. Owner is complying, oh, that's good. Complying with a complaint to clean up the property. Also attached is history of events prepared back in June 2010. Good, so they're working on cleaning that up. Their bank,
We'll need to look at that, though. There's some
okay,
issues with that that need Conservation Commission input.
okay, let's take them. Okay, so I have, this is from Derek, June 23rd, 2010. The cleanup process, this is 533 Tibbetts Hill Road, map 11, lot 10. This was brought to the attention of the zoning code enforcement officer in 2008 when we noted that there was a significant amount of trash and fill on the property. The site was walked with Derek. A complaint was filed with DES Waste Management Division. Property owner began removing material. A majority of small engines were removed. Empty tanks were removed. 55-gallon drums were disposed of. Good God. Property owner sent scrap metal to facilities. 164,706 pounds of scrap metal were removed. Zoinks. Efforts made by the, okay, so at this time, Derek's plan, this was in June, is to continue working with the property owner to document his cleanup effort. I will report to the Board of Selectmen with comments from the Concom to determine if action should be undertaken. Okay, so we kind of, then we have before and after pictures. So Carlos, highlight me on what you think we need to be aware of.
Well,
Or
they've applied
discuss.
for a dredge and fill application from DES, so we need to review that and comment on that. I don't know who went on the site walk. I know I was there.
I did.
Did you on that,
Mhm.
Kimberly? Yeah. So they've submitted this plan to clean it up. It's also a request to dredge a pond, retain some impacts within the 100-foot prime wetland buffer. And I think we need to review those and make some comment on those.
Dredge a new pond or dredge an old pond?
Well, an old pond, maintenance dredge.
Okay,
And then there's talk about replacing some driveway culverts. I think, there's a lot of parts that are involved in this, and I'm not saying, I think what we need to do is hold off on our comment, DES, or at least, have we already submitted a request for a 40-day continuance?
we
on the
typically
application?
do that as a standard practice, don't we?
Yeah, we
When we
do,
get a
typically.
dredge and fill application, we turn around to DES and say we want time to review it. This says it was received January 17th,
Mm-hmm.
so we've requested an extension. So let me follow up on what Carlos is saying. It says, provide a description of the work. Retain 2 areas of gravel that have been placed on grandfathered disturbed areas within the 100-foot prime wetland buffer. Retain 2 areas of gravel, what does that mean? Total of 2 areas of new gravel will be placed within the prime wetland buffer on the site as mentioned in the notice of filings. Good God. There's a lot to this.
It's a very complex
Yeah.
application. I think what we need to do, my recommendation would be to request a site walk with I think it's Peter Schauer,
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Did it?
Mhm.
with him present, so he can walk through the application with us.
Yes, we
I
definitely need
think
to
that's
do
the
that.
only way we can make a reasonable recommendation to DES on this.
Yeah, because they're talking about placing gravel on existing bed of gravel
Right.
prior to the wetland ordinance.
Replacing culverts and dredging a pond, and
Ooh, and there's more. Okay.
there's
Yes.
a lot of,
Yeah,
yeah, it
it
goes
keeps
on
going.
and on and on.
Okay, yes,
And I think we need a presentation from
okay,
them and a site walk.
okay. And we can't do a site walk till we get rid of the snow?
Right.
So, can we send a letter then to DES with that comment that we'd like to have an opportunity to conduct a site walk and a meeting with the applicant and the applicant's representatives at a point in the future where we can walk the site without snow? And we'd like to continue this until then. Yeah, good golly, it goes on and on and on.
Until snow melts, okay. All right.
Okay, and then, do you wanna notify Mr. Shower, or the applicant, or do you want me to send him an email? How do we typically do that, if we want someone to come in and talk to us?
I can, if you want, I can draft one.
Okay. I mean, he can come talk to us sometime between now and March when the snow melts, and it'd probably be good for us to get an understanding of what they're trying to do, so. Okay, good, thank you. All right, so I kinda went through these out of order, okay. Here's notice of shoreline impact permit to Bergeron, which is 38 Riverview Park. Okay, so they got their shoreline, 160 square feet to build a deck on existing home, good. Invoice for our dues, did we pay these dues?
This is the new one,
Oh, it's the new one,
so I don't know if you wanna do it now or wait.
doesn't matter when we do it, really,
I don't think so.
might as well do it. All right, someone make a motion, do we just?
I'll make a motion to pay the
Okay.
dues.
Collis makes a motion to pay the dues to the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions to the amount of $525 that's going to come out of our operating budget.
Perfect.
Okay, anyone second?
I'll second.
Then David seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Good. Utility maintenance notification form for PSNH utility work. Okay, we don't do anything with those, do we? Vegetative maintenance in the right-of-way. Good to know. Intent to cut for the Goffstown Village Water Precinct, map 1, lot 38 on Back Mountain Road. They're gonna cut timber. Anybody have any concerns or issues they wanna raise on that?
No, just an observation, they do a great job with
Mhm,
timber management on their property.
they do.
Their cuts have been great.
Oh, where the heck is this?
Mostly I agree, on the North Mountain, they did a terrific job. Some of the recent area that's kind of, not on the South Mountain, but kind of down below it, there are actually some large clear-cut type areas where it's not selective at all. Now, that isn't in and of itself a bad thing when you do a small plot like that
Right.
and so on. I did receive a phone call, from a citizen asking about this, because they'd seen flagging, which seemed to be going up onto the South Mountain and onto a trail, and asking me, and I really didn't have any information at that time. I'm just wondering if this might be relative to that. And it's worth taking a look and commenting, although that
Mhm.
comments probably don't mean anything, but just to understand what's going on.
Yeah, my observations were only relative to the North Mountain, the job, the cut they did up there. I
Which
thought
was superb.
Was
I think it's one of the best
absolutely
I've ever seen in
wonderful.
town.
Yeah,
But if you go across the road, the more recent
and
cuts,
out up the South Mountain.
it's a very different story. And I think that probably was, to some degree on purpose, because when they did the North Mountain, I think they were being very respectful
Yeah.
of the recreation that it's used so much for, and the major trails, and which is great. And the other area, not so much. It's mostly ATVs and dirt bike riders and stuff that go back in that section more than anything else. But
Is this South Mountain?
I-
This is coming up off of the backside of what I call Uncanunic, which is Mountain Base Pond.
yes,
So
the
that's South
area.
Mountain?
Yeah.
It says 38 acres. That's the parcel.
It's ongoing cuts that they've been doing back in there. It's not like that in every part of this.
Yeah.
It's like some small areas where it's pretty severe and others where it's more selective.
It's not big numbers. I mean, I glanced through the front, it's nothing. And they're obviously,
So I think, it probably is really no issue of concern to us or anything. I'm
Okay.
just, because I'd gotten that phone call, feel somewhat obligated to understand what's going on, just because someone raised it and they were concerned.
okay. Well, we're of the assumption that this is, I mean, they're, what am I trying to say? Spot cutting?
Yeah.
What do we call that? Select harvesting? I mean, obviously 38 acres isn't gonna yield that if they were clear cutting. So they're obviously just spot cutting or,
Yeah, I think in this
Not-
area, they
can't find
probably
words.
are. And it may be again because now that they're moving up to where trails are, again, they're being more selective. The person who called had pointed out, saying, oh my God, this is such a beautiful area where they got the flags now, and did you see what they did down below? But I think they probably understand that, and I have no reason to think that they're not doing anything that isn't appropriate. I just curious.
okey-dokey. I'll take the Town and City magazine. Other business, we've got some plans. Hello, Evelyn. Good evening. Let's see, we've got map 38, lot 101. Site plan for multifamily use. This, I was just reading over the planning board minutes about this. Oh, is that one?
I don't have revised plans from that meeting. You still have the plans that he presented,
Okay.
which are, basically, it's the subdivision that they did with the town.
Yeah.
And he's showing parking spaces adjacent to his,
Library.
to his building. And there was some concerns with the parking spaces where they were located.
And this is it's the lot immediately north of the library.
Yeah,
and
that
then
huge
the small-
Victorian.
Yes, the big Victorian. But as far as our issues, we don't have any issues, right? There's nothing wet there. There's drainage issues, but I know that Megan they're paying attention to that. I read the planning board minutes, and they're just looking to identify enough spaces in that building.
Yeah, and he's putting 2 apartments, and it's some sort of dental equipment, like products that he
He
sells.
designed,
Designed.
he did, he,
Light, and it's
Yes.
mail order stuff.
Mail order
it's
so-
all mail order, 1 or 2 employees.
Mhm.
I watched boring, I watched it
Yeah.
on television.
Boring.
I watched it all
Soil
on
borings.
TV.
So, okay, so do we have any issues of concern with this? Do we even need to study it or talk about it? I don't, do you? Anybody else? All right, I think we can say we have no issues or concerns on this one.
Yeah, I want all these back. Took them from the planning office.
Is this the same one?
You don't have to give them to me now, I'll collect them at the end.
All right, we'll just put them over there. Okay, plan to reinstate use of religious assembly and historic building, map 38 lot, map 38 lot 36, the former vestry shop. We don't have any issues.
Once again, this is
We don't have any
downtown
issues.
area.
They're gonna redo the,
I don't think
they're not doing any site movement or anything.
They're not
No,
changing
they're
anything.
bringing it back to being a church.
Okey-dokey, we don't have any issues
Oh.
or concern with that? Awesome. Map 14, lot 9, 3-lot subdivision creating 2 new lots, 162 St. Anselm's Drive. Have we seen this one before?
Back in 2006.
Yeah.
This
I
was
remember
way
that.
back when, and it got tabled to a date uncertain. The, one of the husband had passed away, so that is why it kind of, it didn't come back on until now.
And it's just creating 2 new lots?
Yeah, and this is downtown Pinardville. I don't think there's any
Well.
conservation issues.
It will be serviced by sewer and water.
concerning.
Yeah, we don't have any issues or concerns.
No issues or concerns?
Anybody speak now or forever hold your peace. We're moving forward. All right, woo!
Huge agenda and already it's out.
I know, thanks for coming out. Could've stayed up for this one. Okay, so did I really go through everything? Hello, Karen, we're just about to adjourn.
No, we aren't.
Okay, no, we're not.
No.
Okay, we
Not
got,
about
We're
hang
not
on.
adjourning yet.
All right. I'm just making sure I'm going through my pile here.
You know, I have a question of this. Is it wet? I mean, I see now there's a detention pond on the site. Is that a proposed, I mean, is there a flowage of some kind?
I think it comes down Holly Street.
I'm looking at the things and there's a pond here, so there's gotta be some drainage overflow somewhere, and I just wondered if that's all,
The St. A's one?
yeah.
I have no idea. Have we
We
done,
don't wanna impact the
have we done
neighbors
a
with
site
sending
walk and
our
do we
water.
care to do a site walk?
Well, I just wondered why there's a proposed detention pond on
I
one
think
of
if
the
I
lots.
remember from when this originally was proposed, there was an issue with the runoff coming down Holly Street, and where it went from that point.
Right, 'cause you don't wanna flood one of those neighbors that all of a sudden has never been wet, and now they're living in a swamp.
The note says, to assist in the infiltration of accumulated stormwater. All side slopes, allow pond slopes.
Does it show any wetland? I haven't gotten far enough.
No, there are no wetlands.
We don't see any topo at all.
Shows no
I
wet,
think
just
that's an
drainage.
engineering concern
Okay,
that needs to be brought up and addressed by DPW.
okay, there's no, I just started to look at this, I didn't look at it before this. I just saw
Do you
the
wanna
pond.
comment, the drainage be properly
Assessed.
Addressed.
addressed, or something like that?
Evaluated by
Yep.
Virgil, DPW. I'm sure they're
And
gonna
then we make
anyways,
it,
but
and then it's a notation.
Okay.
Just the other end. So it's this one.
Yeah, 'cause it slopes that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is Heald Street.
I think they've had issues all along that area, and another street over there with the drainage as it gets built.
Oh, yeah.
It's flowing from one to another.
it's not the first one we've seen down
No,
there, in that area.
Okay. Do we have other business we need to attend to?
Yes.
Okey-dokey. David, you got the floor?
Well, I wanted to discuss an issue, regarding the Blackbriar open space. So the Blackbriar plan off Montalona Road, that's creating 126, 128 acres of an open space.
Is that opposite Harry Brook, that Harry Brook area?
No, this is off Montalona Road.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Black Brook.
The Blackbriar, subdivision.
the
Yeah,
17
Black
lots.
Brook is back behind it. So anyway, the proposal that was made in the planning, and as we discussed in every planning board meeting and every conservation commission meeting, the open space traditionally goes to a homeowners association, and then we would put a conservation easement on that held by the town. That's how we've done many of the recent past ones. I mean, going further back, they used to be covenants, but in recent years, we've switched to conservation easements because they mean more, you know, than the covenants do. They're more enforceable. In this situation, early on, at the very beginning of this, we identified the potential recreational value of this property and suggested that in this case, we would like to explore the possibility and see if we can have the open space land be deeded to the town instead of to a homeowners association with a conservation easement placed upon it and held by the Piscataquag Land Conservancy. This is how we presented it up front in the beginning. This is how it was presented in all planning board meetings, which was attended by noticed abutters and the rest of the general public. Likewise with the Conservation Commission meetings that we held. And then we went to the Board of Selectmen to say, this is what we want to do, and presented it to them for the first time in the fall. In that initial meeting in the fall, it was kind of interesting because I remember Scott Gross, the chairman, made a comment, why is this even coming to us? We do not deal with planning board issues. We're the Board of Selectmen. This is a planning issue and we shouldn't be involved in planning decisions. And that was a very good statement. He was absolutely right. But then we explained, well, in this situation, this open space could not be given to the town because only the selectmen can vote to accept land by state statute. So it proceeded on. This month there have been 2 public noticed hearings to discuss the town accepting the land. And that was on January 3rd and then January 17th for the second. And then Monday night, January 25th, 24th, whatever the date was the actual vote by the selectmen to select the land, which they unanimously chose to do. However, much to my surprise, during that vote, the issue of the conservation easement was separated out. I mean, from the beginning, this has always been presented as accepting the land with the conservation easement held by the PLC. So this has been separated out for further discussion. And, okay, I don't think that was really necessary, but that's what was chosen. But comments were made during the meeting like, well, we need to discuss, do we really want to do this, place the conservation easement on it, or do we want to consider other options? And that part is wrong. That's completely wrong because these were noticed public hearings with the abutters before the planning board. The plan, as discussed, the plan as conditionally accepted by the planning board is with the conservation easement. It's not an option, it's not right, and it's not proper for the selectmen to consider another option because that's a different plan, and that nulls everything that's gone on before us and the planning board for the last several months. That's not an option. They should not be doing that. So, I mean, no vote was taken in that regard or anything. It was, you know, and I think it's just a misunderstanding. I don't, you know, mean to suggest anything otherwise. But there will be a discussion of this at the next Board of Selectmen meeting this coming Monday of the 31st. And I think we need to send the message and be very clear that, you know, we have always presented this from the beginning as, here's the plan, accept it with the easement. This is what's been discussed. This is what it's supposed to be. It's not an option to change it to something else because it makes all the work that's been done by planning and conservation null and void. I mean, subdivisions have been overturned for similar sorts of issues where people weren't properly notified, and
Well, I think the,
this needs to be clarified.
it's a change of the plan anyway. I mean, if you're changing what the use of that piece of property would be, then it's a change in the plan.
Yes,
So I think right, it's, I mean, I would think that the planning board themselves would just say, no, this is not what we agreed on. If you wanna change that, then we have to
But-
go back and redo the whole plan.
but it would be so much better to clarify everything right now and not
Mhm.
make everybody go
Yes.
through endless rounds of new meetings and opening up new
Right.
hearings, and, I mean, I see no reason for that if we can avoid it.
And this is on the agenda for tomorrow night, right?
Next Monday.
Well, no, I meant planning.
For planning.
This is it being introduced to
I-
planning tomorrow night?
I recommended to Brian, I don't know if he's bringing it up or calls may wanna bring it up, I don't know. I just passed on the concern to the planner as well.
Okay. Charlie?
I agree with what David's saying, and I will certainly be at the planning board meeting tomorrow night to bring forward the Conservation Commission's concerns. And I agree with what David's saying. This has been brought forward all along with the fact that this was gonna be passive recreation. There were comments made by members of the Board of Selectmen, well, maybe we should reserve this in case we want to put tennis courts there or recreational fields there. That's contrary to what many, many people who have invested many, many hours into this project have recommended and brought forward. And I think it's a little bit cavalier for the Board of Selectmen to somehow dismiss all of that and say, let's put all that aside, and maybe we ought to keep it open for other town opportunities. And I don't think that's proper. And I think we need to bring that message forward to the Board of Selectmen, and I think we start tomorrow with getting the planning board on board, and then we attend the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday night, and I will certainly be there to bring this message forward to them. They need to listen to what the people of this community are saying to them. And that is, accept this, leave it as open space for passive recreation. We spent a lot of time and effort invested in this, and listen to what we're saying to you. And don't just make a decision that runs contrary to that. I don't think that's what the people of this community want. So, yeah, I'll be there Monday night. Absolutely, David. I agree with what you're saying.
Well, let's try and give them the benefit of the doubt and just that they just don't know.
Oh, I
understand.
understand.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand.
That's what
I
I
mean,
think it's
that's it.
confusion.
I'm not saying we go
Okay.
with guns blazing.
Okay.
I'm just saying,
That they just
we just go in and reinforce.
don't understand, right.
How, the process that we've gone through
Mhm.
to get to this point.
And maybe Nick can speak to some of that.
Well, we haven't had the discussion yet, so
Right.
I really can't as part of the board, because the board hasn't had that discussion, and I don't know what's in the minds of each of the different members. But maybe if we try to break that down into, from what I gathered, and I'll speak for myself, I don't think there's anyone that wants to change the use. I think it's recognized that it was set aside as open space, and it has to stay as open space. There may be a question of whether an easement has to be granted to a third party, or if the town can steward it. And I don't know if that's, I'm just throwing that out there, that may be one of the issues. But again, those are probably some, when we have that discussion, if we review the open space portion of the master plan, if we look at the decision of the planning board to get all of that information. There were some members that felt that the conservation easement may have been too rigid. And I know that planning board recommendation was for this Board of Selectmen to enter into an easement, an agreeable easement with, a steward.
I guess, Nick, what I'm hearing you say, though, is kind of contrary to what we've just been saying, which is it being an easement held by PLC really is a very specific, defined, rigid, that's what we want. And I think the developers in that wanted it too. They didn't want it to be something flexible that 50 years from now, they could decide could be available for something else.
Another kindergarten.
Well, and Nick's right, we'll have all this discussion, but I just want to state that, what the passage was read from the regs that night, not in great detail, but the phrase that it's
And
set
that's very
aside for
generic.
perpetual open space.
Which is why I mentioned using the master plan, because I think that gets into much more detail than the zoning ordinance just basically says open space is land that is set aside in perpetuity for recreational use or natural use. And I think
Right.
it's a very broad statement that can be interpreted.
However
a lot of
that is
ways.
interpreted, regardless of how that's interpreted, this has been presented at every meeting, every notice, public hearing, as
That's
the
it.
town accepts that the PLC holds the easement. The PLC holding the easement means it's guaranteed that it will remain open and undeveloped. The town holding it without an easement means there is absolutely no guarantee, and the town on a whim could do whatever they wanted in the future. There's no real restriction. Those are two very, very different scenarios. And so for the town to accept it without the easement, I think is completely counter to what has been in all the public hearings and all the discussions. And the selectmen had these 2 public hearings themselves, and no discussion on that matter was ever brought up by them or thrown out during those public hearings when people could have made some input. Nothing was said at all until doing the actual vote after the fact, and I don't think that was proper either.
And it frankly speaks to, and hopefully this is just a misunderstanding, but a lot of work goes into creating these agreements and understandings, and you know, PLC doesn't or isn't capable of taking every easement that people ask them to take, and, you know, we should be appreciative of the fact that they're working with us instead of sort of, it's a little bit like snubbing at them, saying, well, thanks for your offer, but we're not really sure we really understand it, and that's some of our frustration, is that this was a lot of work, and it's sort of muddying the issue.
Another thing to consider too is that whenever easements like these are performed, there are expenses. There's associated with setting it up and stewardship fee, and in this case, the developer is paying all those expenses, so there's no cost to the town for implementing this.
Right, there's a lot of parties that are affected by this action, not the least of which is the developer, who has been cooperative to this point.
And
And
this
now
is-
all of a sudden is seeing somebody step in and say, you know, maybe there's a problem here. And he's going, you know, what message does that send to future developers, those who might come before us in the future?
And when David and I went on the sidewalk very early on, he had brought this up, and he was very, very gung-ho with the idea of putting this into open space. He really wanted to work with the town to acquire this for open space.
Evelyn, I know you keep trying to
Well,
speak.
so I guess the only other thing I was thinking is there may be besides wanting to put this piece of property or lovely piece into open space, it may also be a criteria for, is it a cluster development that then has
Oh, it is.
open space with it? So it's a
That
required.
was a condition
It's
of
a
the site
condition,
plan.
right, right, so again, somebody cannot arbitrarily say, oh, well, we don't wanna use it for that, because it has to meet a condition to have this cluster development, so you cannot change, it's,
Right.
you know, so.
That's a point to be made, that, and I did raise that at the selectmen meeting the other night, that our development regulations specifically say this amount has to be set
Yeah.
aside in an undeveloped state. And then there was some brief discussion about, well, what are the definitions that allow for that? And, you know, like a more town parkish type developed park, but, you know, now you're starting to talk about parking lots and access roads, and I think you would very quickly be going counter to the
It's-
development regs, in addition to
Yeah.
this being,
And the fact of the matter is, the parcel that's set aside for preservation is mostly wetlands, and is undevelopable anyway, so it just,
would take a lot of DES permits.
So I believe we had suggested that maybe we formulate some type of draft response to the selectmen, or do we want to just leave this as spoken issues for tomorrow night, for Monday night? David, did we draft something? Or did we
You
wait?
asked me if I would draft something, so I did a very rough draft, but I wouldn't expect it to be what we
Okay,
actually send.
okay. Do you wanna read it?
Yeah,
It's okay.
I went into sleep mode here. And it's way too wordy, I think. I was trying to just hit everything, but I'll read what I have, and we could always amend this. So anyway, it would be a memo dated January 26th. This is the 26th, I believe. To the Goffstown Board of Selectmen, copied to the Planning Board, RE Conservation Commission and Planning Board recommendations for open space land acquisition for Blackbriar Woods Open Space Subdivision, map 9, lots 33-7, 46, and 60. And before I read this, one other thing. Before we began the public hearings, the selectmen said, well, okay, so you're telling us about this, but we want written statements and recommendations from both planning and conservation as to what it is they're asking us to do.
Yeah, I remember
And
reading
we
that.
sent that, and planning sent that, and both of those recommendations say with the conservation easement. So it's very clear in those memos as well. So here's the body of it. On Monday, January 24th, 2011, the Goffstown Selectmen voted for the town to accept the open space area being created by the Blackbriar Woods Open Space Subdivision, map 9 lots, and so on. But they separated the issue of placing this open space area into a conservation easement to be held by the Piscataquag Land Conservancy, and we'll have a discussion at the next BOS meeting, January 31st, 2011, regarding whether or not to enter into the easement. Please be advised that both the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board asked the Selectmen to decide on whether or not they would accept this land with the conservation easement held by the PLC. This is what was presented in all notice public hearings to the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. This is what was discussed in legal hearings properly noticed to abutters in the larger community, as required by New Hampshire statutes. This was clearly stated to the Selectmen at every BOS meeting where this was discussed. God, I did it. With a Conservation Commission or Planning Board member. And this was clearly presented in the two public hearings the BOS held on January 3rd, 2011 and January 17th, 2011. Please be advised, I'm going to scroll down here. Come on. Not responding here. Sorry. Please be advised that to accept the land without the conservation easement protection with the PLC is not the legally approved plan they were asked to vote on, and that such an action will nullify the work done by the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. We did not ask you to create a new option, nor can you do so unilaterally without voiding the proposal heard and accepted by the Planning Board. The land was to be perpetually protected by a conservation easement as part of the subdivision approval. The question before you was to consider acceptance of the ownership of the land by the town to assure it would also provide a perpetual passive recreation area for Goffstown residents instead of private ownership by a homeowners association with easement granted to the town. That's it.
I guess,
Which is a good point, because he asked us way back, because they could have done it as a homeowners association, and we said no. We said we'd like to see it this way, so.
Well, the option, planning board, the conditional approval was you either come back with it being accepted by the town with the PLC holding the easement, or a homeowners association, in which case the easement would come to the town the way we usually do it.
David,
Either or.
I think the only thing I might change is instead of just saying subdivision, I would say cluster development so that
Open space.
open
space
space,
development.
so that you really understand this is a very specifically defined kind of plan, and there is required.
Well, is this a memo from us to the Board of Selectmen? Is that the way, is that how
Yes.
you're presenting it? A lot of words in there. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Condensed.
No, well, not condensed. I'd like to see it.
Oh.
To
Yeah,
review it.
it's
I
hard
mean,
to
yeah.
hear, and
It's a lot of words and hard to comprehend.
can I just pass this around?
Well, no. Can you send it?
No, I'm serious.
No, no.
If
Can we-
you wanna,
Just send it
We've done
electronically.
we've done this before. Can we make a motion to have, say, David and Collis modify this, because we all understand the spirit of what we're trying to say to the Board of Selectmen? We can, I don't even know if we need to
I
vote on
move.
this, but if we do,
Yeah.
Evelyn
Yes.
moves, Kim seconds.
Use that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, yeah, if you guys wanna work together on
Sure.
getting the appropriate wording, and we'll forward that to the Board of Selectmen, and
Because
let
we've
them
got
know
time
our
to do that.
opinion.
I mean, we can,
yeah, that's true. With the planning board, well, I was gonna copy it to the planning board, but I know we're gonna have to be represented there,
Yeah.
so.
Will someone also be there Monday night during the discussion?
I will be. Okay.
Yeah, I can try to be there Monday night. And David and I were at the one public hearing for the project.
But I think the approach is right. I think David's got the memo framed
Mhm.
properly. I just want to,
Yeah, it's,
then when I hear terms like legally, blah, 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 it's like, ooh.
you can't really edit by somebody reading it to
Right,
you. It just
right.
doesn't work.
And it also adds to, I mean, we sort of have a secondary list of things we always talk about working on, but really, this ordinance needs to be clarified, and we've known for years that we need to try to sit down and maybe have a workshop where we wrestle with clarifying this ordinance, because it is very vague. It's sort of like, put the land in open space. And there's certainly other towns that have really great ordinances that give a lot better direction than just
Well,
this,
but
so.
there
We've
has
talked
to be.
about toying with that language, we've never really discussed any further than
There has to be
that.
a certain amount of vagueness in it, given that it depends on, so much on the conditions of the property. I mean, there are some open space areas that are created that no land trust would wanna supervise, and, you know, you might look at it and go, you know, this really doesn't offer a practical recreational
I think we had one
facility
last
to the
year.
town, and it makes more sense that it's just an open area for the subdivision. I mean, every project's different, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can't necessarily have a one-fits-all, but this one was very, very unique, given that it's such a large area relative to the development. And the way it's clustered, the development is right up there in the corner next to the other houses. It's kind of really what we wanna see in a
Yeah, it's
clustered
what
open
the
space.
whole point
I agree.
is,
One,
right.
dealing with a lot of these in the state, we talk about being specifically vague when you develop these things. I mean, that's a kind of a contradiction of terms, but that's really what you need to do. You need to be specific, but vague enough so that you don't eliminate
Box
the
yourself in,
opportunity
right.
for other projects to come in through the process, so
Mm.
it's kind of a tricky, you know, you've dealt with these.
How was the acreage again?
Nick's got it, it's the acre, you know what the open space acreage is?
27?
127?
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you can see where that.
At one time, when the open space way back when, they used to do the passive, natural open space, and they used to have to dedicate, because this was just for the homeowners. They didn't give easements to the town. They had to dedicate an area for, like, if they were having a ball field
Recreation.
or a basketball court, something in that fashion. They used to have to do that. That might be where that part is, it's changed,
Little
it's
playground,
evolved into
yeah.
something different since
Right.
then. I mean, that's like 10 years.
Okay, anyone else have any other issues they wanna raise, discuss? No? Everyone can look over your super secret closed session minutes and we can vote on that at the next meeting. Next meeting is February 16 plus 7, 23? February 23rd, is that right?
Yeah.
Because we were looking at moving it to the 16th and then we decided to leave it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and I'm sure I'll see everyone at the
still
town
on
deliberative session and
Betcha.
be out there. Which is?
23rd.
23rd is Wednesday.
23rd, February 23rd is our next Conservation Commission meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, anybody second?
I'll second.
All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Now, don't go anywhere, we're